Welcome back to Free Thinking Express. We have another video here today. Today we're going to be looking at Billy Carson's video, The Anunnaki's Bloodline. Billy Carson, y'all may know him, you may not. He's been doing a lot of research on this for years. It's pretty much his life's work. So we're going to get into some stuff. The whole thing of this video is for you to think, learn, and grow. But at the end of the day, you got to do the work. So let's get into it.
I'm going to talk about the Anunnaki bloodlines that are ruling the planet. This is something that I thought was an important topic because a lot of people have heard me talk about the Anunnaki and talk about the Atlanteans, which are really the same in one, and talk about these ancient aliens or these ancient astronauts that have come here and influenced mankind, genetically modified mankind. But it's always like, oh, it's in the ancient past, and the question comes up a lot, well, where are they now? Well, the truth is, I believe that they're still here. Not only as some of them here in, their original form, but also some of their bloodline still here till this very day. And that's what I hope to show you today, is the fact that the Anunnaki bloodline is still ruling and controlling this planet till this very current day. Zecharia Sitchin, in my personal opinion, is one of the greatest researchers of all time. One of, not the one, but one of. And at the end of his career, he was vilified and trashed, saying that he was, a Mason, and he was the only one that translated the tablets, and he made it all up and everything else. It's a big problem. Nobody wants to go dig in and do their own research. They just, oh, this guy said it, it must be real. They don't even know that guy, and they haven't researched anything about what he said. But the fact is, Zecharia Sitchin,
right there, that is a lot of people's downfall. They'll believe anything without doing their own research. Even what I'm showing you right now, even with what he's saying. Please go do your own research. Because if not, you'll just be doing your own thing with your own knowledge and could be leading yourself down the wrong path, thinking you're going down the right one. All of this stuff comes together, which is part of the mindset of life.
did not translate the Sumerian tablets. Let me say that again. Zecharia Sitchin did not translate the Sumerian tablets. What he did was he took pre-translated content called the Enuma Elish and the Seven Tablets of Creation, which were translated in the 1800s. In the 1800s by Leonard William King and also by George Smith. Those are the two guys that translated the Sumerian tablets.
Look at that. I want y'all to remember this picture because y'all gonna see this picture a lot. Not the picture of the guy, but the tablet that he's holding, the stone tablet. If you look at it, it tells a story. That story is about to get explained.
The Enuma Elish, the Seven Tablets of Creation, also the Epic of Atrahasis, the Epic of Gilgamesh. That was all translated long before, as you can see, he was born in 1920. So long before Zecharia Sitchin was even born, it was already translated. This is important information for you to know as you go down the path to learning about the Anunnaki. You have to get a lot of the lies and misconceptions and propaganda out of your head. Okay, what Zecharia Sitchin did was he took the information from the Sumerian tablets, he took information from the Mahabharata, the Quran, and the Bible, and he tried to paint a picture as to what he thought happened in the ancient past. Did he get it 100% accurate? Probably not. I mean, who will? We weren't there. All we can do is come.
That's another thing. Y'all are not going to find anyone who's going to get all or any information. Not even us. We are Free Thinking Express. We can't give all the information because not one person knows all. That is the whole point of why we were built, to make sure there's a collective, not only for y'all, but the next generation to come to learn and grow and think for themselves and change and better their lives. That is our mission. That is our goal. But at the end of it all being said and done, no one has all the answers. If you hear someone say they know it all or they have all the answers, run as fast as you can in the opposite direction. But they'll bring you down faster than a tamale on a Sunday. So at the end of the day, let's get back into this. Y'all enjoying the show? Let me know. Y'all can hear everything.
Come up with theories and ideas and concepts based off of our research. But what I've done now, since I've gotten involved with this and looked at the tablets myself and talked to other now authors that have also gone and written their own independent books based off their own research, we've all come to the same conclusion. These Anunnaki beings, or these Atlantean beings, they all came here in the ancient past. They all interacted with mankind in a way that had something to do with a genetic modification. Where their exact star system or planet that they came from is up in the air or in question. It could be this Nibiru planet, which orbits a brown dwarf star. It could be Sirius. It could be the Pleiades. It could be Orion. I tend to think that it's all of them. I think that there are planetary species from all different planets, so solar systems, and probably a galactic planetary type of a race. That's my personal opinion. And people say, well, where's Atlantis? Is it in the Atlantic Ocean? We're standing on Atlantis right now. Atlantis is the entire planet Earth. They came here to stake the claim to it. There was a ring city in the Atlantic Ocean which sunk, or somewhere in the region. However, that was just one capital city of dozens that were already on the planet. And Atlantis is everywhere. No matter where you stand on this planet, you're standing on top of Atlantis. It was global. This is the CDO.
Think about that. He said, no matter where you stand, you're on top of Atlantis. It was global. How was it global? Think about that. How was it global? There was a time when all the earth was connected. That would explain how you got some pyramids and stuff in certain space. And you'll also understand what happened to Atlantis, how they say some of it is underwater. But if all of the land was Atlantis, that means everything was connected for it to be global. Then it disappeared. And then everything started going by ship. But what kind of ship? Those are the questions you should always look into. Research that. What kind of ship was used during them times? Dig deep. Don't just scratch the surface. Also, when you're doing all of this research, start to realize when you're getting sucked into a rabbit hole and get out and move to the next topic. Because a lot of rabbit holes, they'll lead you right back to another topic. So don't get stuck in one spot.
Cuneiform Library website, which is hosted by UCLA. So if you ever say, man, I want to look at these tablets for myself, I encourage you to. You just go to the UCLA CDLI Cuneiform Library. You can take a virtual tablet off the shelf and drop it into the translator for free and find out what the tablet says.
Oh, write that down. Write down that website right there. That way y'all can read for yourselves. You ain't just gotta go off this video on the screen. You can go and read for yourselves. Our main goal is for y'all to start doing for yourselves, to better yourselves and to better others in the process. What's that old saying? Can't expect the world to do better if you don't start to do better first. It's got to be a change somewhere.
So that's how easy it is. You don't need Zachariah Sitchin. You don't need me. You don't need anybody else. All you need is some time and a computer. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. The Anunnaki elite make their way to Earth, the fifth tablet. So we're talking about now a very long time ago, about 450,000 years ago, these people came here, or these beings came here, and we look like them. They're not little green men with antenna. From the planet Lamu, the chariot departed toward Earth. The journey continued. Around the moon, they made circuits.
Said they look like us. Makes you think of reptilians. But what if it ain't just reptilians? Then what is it really? How do you know you are not a descendant of the bloodline? Anything's possible. Everything repeats.
A way station they're on to explore. Around the Earth, they made circuits toward a splashdown slowing. In the waters beside Eridu, Nungal, the chariot bring down. Tukwe by Enlil constructed. They stepped off. Boats were no longer needed, so there must have been some type of a bridge that they stepped onto to walk to land. Enlil and Enki, their sister, would embrace, greeted. With Nungal, the pilot locked arms. The heroes, male and female, by present heroes were the shouts greeted. All that the chariot brought was quickly unloaded. Rocket ships and skyships and the tools by Enki designed and provisions of all kinds. So they're setting up shop. They're making a base, a way station, a base here on Earth. This is one of the first arrivals of these people here. They were called the heroes of old. They're known as the original pantheon, an original pantheon. The pantheon is not originally from Greece. It actually originated in Mesopotamia and Iraq. Real brief, I'm going to read this as well. Enlil's construction plans 450,000 years ago.
You said in Iraq. Y'all remember they were saying weapons of mass destruction, but there was none found. But what if those mass destruction weapons were all pretty much like stargates, historical artifacts that controlled access to knowledge, that had access to power? Also, what if you tried to do everything and you start to find out oh, I have to go here and learn too, but you don't have access to it. What do most people try to do to get find a way around something? So it's like when you start to see and hear Mesopotamia all the time, Iraq, you'll hear a lot about Babylon. A lot of people wonder where Babylon is at. Babylon is in Iraq. It's Mesopotamia. Not exactly in Iraq, more like down the street from Iraq. Like literally, you could look and see it from down the street. It ain't built on top. But if you notice, most cities and civilizations back then that were major were always built by a river. Matter of fact, that'll be a good thing to look into. Did there used to be a major river that ran through Mesopotamia? Check that out when you get a chance.
Go. This is before they began to interact with humans, by the way. Even though we had an existing hominid on this planet, they were making a base for themselves and working themselves. On the way, and little to her, the landscape showed the Edens. He's talking about talking to his sister. The Eden's extent to her, he showed. So the Eden was already locked and planned out where they were going to put this Eden. From the skies and Lil to her, his plans explained. An everlasting plan I have designed. To her, he was saying, that which for all time construction shall determine, I have laid out. And if you look at that, if we stop right there, if you look at the ancient Sumerians and how they laid the first street grids, that's the same exact style grid we still use to this very current day. Okay, so it was laid out that way from ancient times. Away from Eridu, where dry land begins, my quarters shall be. Larsa will be its name, a place for directing it shall become. On the banks of the Baranu, the river of deep waters will it be located. A twin city thereof shall in future arise. Lagash I shall name it. Between the two on the plans a line have I drawn. 60 leagues thereafter a healing city shall come into being. A city of your own it shall be. Talking to his sister. Shurabak, the haven city, I shall name it. On the center line it shall be located. To the fourth city it shall be leading. Nibiru Key, earth's crossing place, I will name it. A bond heaven earth, and it shall I establish. A bond heaven earth is very interesting. They have something called a Duran key, these Anunnaki beings, and this Duran key is this thing that they put in place that connects to another realm or another dimension or maybe another planet. Only the elite of the elites were allowed to walk through it. There's some cylinder scrolls depicting Enki walking through this thing. He's got these squiggles all around him like he's walking through a stargate. It literally is a stargate. It's a Duran key, a bond heaven to earth that they literally walk through to walk from earth back to their homeland is what they call it, or their home planet. On a crystal.
Think about that. A stargate. And walk from earth back to their planet. Billy Carson also mentions that the road they take is like a rainbow. So when you see a rainbow, go look on this YouTube, you'll see it. When it's a rainbow, it's actually a roadway portal that only certain people have access to. And that's what the government's trying to replicate. But back to this rainbow. From one end to the other. So you got it from one world to the other. And there's a stargate. So that means there's like a Stonehenge or either a portal that you walk through. And then there's this rainbow that you go down and you're in another stargate, a door portal that you walk through and you're in this other world. Is it just me or does that sound like Thor at all? It doesn't sound like Asgard going down to Earth. If not, y'all should go watch the movie. They be putting a lot of stuff in movies. Don't be blind and just be watching entertainment. See the secrets in it.
Tablet in the Ninma, the master plan he was showing. So he had some type of an iPad almost. On the tablet, he saw more markings. Of them in Lil, she inquired, beyond the 5 cities, a chariot place I shall henceforth build, with Nibiru to earth directly to arrive. So from Nibiru to earth directly to arrive. That's a stargate. They're walking from earth directly back to their home planet. So these are some very, very advanced beings. And the fact that they were able to come here 450,000 years ago, and you look at some of the technology that they talk about, I estimate that they probably were about 1 million years ahead of us.
You know what he just said? 450,000 years ago, 1 million years ahead. That means all the stuff you seeing right now and looking at and watching on TV in these movies, they got that idea from somewhere. Star Wars, just like Billy Carson said, Star Wars, the Jedi mind, it all came from somewhere. Godzilla, Dragon Ball Z, Avatar, The Last Airbender. Where did these ideas come from? As you go through this and you start to learn more about it, you'll start to see. But at the beginning of it is just, why hide all this stuff? Is it to make money off of you? Is it to control your own mind and paradigm? Or is it, if you don't know, you don't think about it, boom. Look at all the inventions that we're getting now that were invented in the 19 and 1800s. Nothing is new under the sun. Nothing. If you had an idea, somebody else had the same idea, especially if you didn't use it. So your best bet is, the moment you get an idea, write it down, take action, apply the knowledge. Unapplied knowledge, you're just going to be a fool of your own demise. You're going to be having all this knowledge and then not once take it to better yourself, know your life. Make sure whatever you do, you're improving every day. Even if you're going through something bad, remember, there's always sunshine on the storm. And what I mean by sunshine on the storm and at the other side, you're here, the clouds above you, and above that is the sun. And it's beaming on that storm. It's going to get through. There's always something better, no matter what negative thing you have to deal with. You just got to keep that mindset. Be positive.
That's about the true lifespan in terms of where we are now to where they are technology-wise. I believe they're about 1 million years ahead of us. So when you're dealing with somebody that's that far ahead, right now, if somebody showed up to this planet that far ahead of us, a lot of people, maybe not us in this room, but a lot of people on this planet will think it was God right away, immediately. If I come here and I've got technology integrated into my body, I've got the ability to fly, I've got bionic eyes, I've got the internet connected directly to my ear. A Harvard University student developed this little thing that connects to the back of your ear, and it just sits on the bone, and it's connected wirelessly to Google. And he thinks the question, this is on 60 Minutes, he thinks the question, and then Google takes it, and then it sends him the answer back through the bone so he can hear it in his head. So he knows the answer to everything. Whatever you ask him, he
Again, the person knows everything, run the opposite direction. 2, Google ain't always right either. But that whole description of a hearing aid is what he just described, a hearing aid being elevated to the point it's now making connections with Wi-Fi. How else is it able to connect to Google to give them the information back? Ain't like he walking around with an antenna on his head. So at the end of the day, how? You'll learn a lot more about frequencies. You'll learn a lot more about sound waves. But back to this hearing aid now becoming a computerized device telepathically. They went and upgraded to where people can get hearing aids inside their head. Now they're trying to upgrade that to a brain implant of a microchip. What are your thoughts? But you can go Google that too, what he was just talking about. But when you look at the aspect of all of this, it's like, what happened to the technology? And like I said in the beginning, why was it hidden? It was well known. I need to find out what happened to the school system in the 1920s. I might give you a little insight too.
has the answer to. There's nothing he doesn't know. As long as it's on Google, it's in his head. Now imagine a being comes here with that kind of technology, and they have all that information stored in their head through some type of a chip that can store that amount of data. So the technology that they had made them appear to be gods, even though they weren't. And mankind, unfortunately, we fell prey to their advanced abilities. So what we're going to do is we're going to go down a little path, and we're going to start in the past, and we're going to take a journey to the current day. So we're going to start off with the Sumerian Kings list, which is located in the Ashmolean Museum in Oxford, England. You can go there right now today. It's actually one of the main displays and one of the main sought-after artifacts in that museum. I recommend anybody who has a chance to go there to look at it with your own eyes, because you're looking at a piece of history that's on full display to the world that tells you that these beings ruled over this planet at a time where mankind wasn't ruling, but they were ruling over themselves for hundreds of thousands of years. So the Ashmolean Museum in Oxford, England, this is one of my Anunnaki admins for my group on Facebook. We have a group called Anunnaki History on Facebook, and we also have a Facebook page called Anunnaki History and an Instagram account as well. But he went to the Ashmolean Museum and took this video for me as he walked around. But that tablet literally lays out the King's List before the flood. So this is very important to know. This is pre-flood.
Y'all see how small that tablet is and how big of a story it can tell? Just that one little small piece, how big of a story it can tell. Makes you wonder how they got the idea to try to store so much data in such a small little device. Nothing's new under the sun.
Pre-flood, these beings ruled over the planet and ruled over themselves without interacting with mankind at that moment. And I'm going to go into that a little bit more. We're also going to talk about the Atrahasis epic. The epic of Atrahasis is a Sumerian stone that has etched in it cuneiform text that talks about the Great Flood. Before the Great Flood, everywhere you look in these Sumerian tablets, you find that there was really a Great Flood. And I'm going to even go further back than that. We have some other records that show as well. But the Great Flood is like the marking point to say, okay, before this flood, it was just these Anunnaki beings ruling, controlling, running themselves, actually even making their own working class people do a lot of the labor and work. And then much later, after the flood, is when they kind of said, okay, now we're going to put it on mankind. So that's where we're going to go with it. But when you want to know the truth about where the Bible got all their information for the Old Testament, it came from the Atrahasis epic, literally copied, almost word for word. It came from the Enuma Elish and the Seven Tablets of Creation. It came from the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, and also some of it came from the Mahabharata. And also the Egyptian Book of the Dead, which is really called the Book of Going Forth by Day. That's the true name of the book. It's not really called the Egyptian Book of the Dead. So that's where all the content came from, for a majority of the Old Testament and a lot of the Proverbs. New Testament, a lot of it came from the Emerald Tablets. The people that wrote the Bible 100 AD to 900 AD, long after the people in the Bible that they're talking about were long gone and dead. Nobody who's talked about in the Bible wrote any of it. Not one of them. Matter of fact, they were unlearned men. They had no knowledge of anything. A lot of them even couldn't write or read. The Bible was written long after people were dead, and most of it was just copied text. It's not an insult to anybody who believes in the Bible. What I'm just saying is you've got to dig deeper into what you're reading and understanding, and you got to go into the root base of the original language and find out that there's almost 10,000 mistranslations, and then find out the source material for where they got that content. It wasn't the Torah copied as well. And when you dig deeper and deeper, you start to discover that a lot of this information came directly from the Sumerian tablets, especially the Epic of Gilgamesh, which we're going to talk about. The 7 tablets.
Now, this ain't to knock nobody's religion or any other thing like that, but do your research and question it. But at the same time, make sure you got the basis of your research, meaning the foundation. Because a lot of stuff you're saying, let's put it this way. When Jesus says turn the other cheek, he wasn't talking about if somebody hits you, turn the other cheek. If somebody does wrong to you, turn the other cheek and think positive of them. And by doing that, you bring more positivity and good into your life. But thinking negative or harm brings more negative and downfall into your life. Do unto others as you will have them do unto you. So think positive of them if you want them to think positive of you. Respect them if you want them to respect you. Yes, respect is given, but that's when you first meet a person, how they talk and treat you. But you're all giving each other respect. But when you get down into it all, you'll start to find out a lot of it was spiritual stuff that Jesus was talking about. Some call him Yeshua. You'll find that out as you start to begin your journey deep into the dark. You'll even find out Yeshua bloodline is still existing. Remember, he did have kids with Mary Magdalene, but in the Bible, they make her a prostitute.
Of creation that are in, I think they're in Cambridge Library right now, but these, the British Museum, sorry, the British Museum right now is where they're located, as well as the Ultra Aces epic. You can go there and see them. And they talk about the creation of the solar system, the creation of Earth, and they also talk about these Anunnaki beings coming to this planet, as well as mining this planet for resources, and also Mars for resources. And then it talks about them genetically modifying the existing hominid on the planet, creating a worker slave. They didn't say that they created anything from scratch, but they genetically modified what would have been our cousins. Okay, that's important to know. They didn't make anything from scratch. The Enuma Elish, I'm just going to read the first paragraph. The Enuma Elish, also spelled Enuma Elis, is the Babylonian creation myth. It was recovered by Austin Henry Layard in 1849 in the ruined library of Ashurbanipal at Nineveh, which is now Mosul, Iraq, and published by George Smith in 1876. So again, not Zechariah Sitchin, George Smith, 1876. The Enuma Elish has about 1,000 lines and is recorded in Old Babylonian on 7 clay tablets, each holding between 115 and 170 lines of Sumo-Akkadian cuneiform script. Most of the tablet 5 had never been recovered until recently, and tablet 5 was recently discovered and is currently in the Sulamaya Museum in Iraq. This is tablet number 5, which just came out a couple years ago. They finally put it on display. So it's a full story now. An epic that predates a lot of the material that we consider to be modern religious content and books, all come from these ancient tablets, which are etched into stone and can't be changed. Also, there's another document out there called the Terra Papers. Has anybody ever heard of the Terra Papers? Okay, a few people. These are some ancient records that indigenous Native Americans have their hands on for a very, very long time. I recommend you read them. I think George Lucas read them.
Look at that picture. In that center, you see it's a galaxy. You see it's a line going from each circle to that galaxy in different parts of the galaxy. That does not mean just everything is connected. It also shows you the different points in the galaxy from where they came. A lot of your stars and your planets, they're not what they tell you as to be. Look into that. A lot of your stars and your astrological signs tell a story just like these tablets. Research.
You know why? Because it's the whole Star Wars saga. Minus the love story. Literally. Like, you can read this and go, oh, I think I just saw this movie. This is where he got it from. He got his hands on the Terra Papers, and he rated it into a multi-trillion-dollar movie series. I'm not mad at him. I mean, we didn't find it. He did. But it's out there, and Robert Morningsky is one of the famous Native American elders that still talks about it to this day, Robert Morningsky. It's an incredible epic which talks about the creation of the universe. It has the same people, Anu, Enlil, Enki. I mean, the same people that are talked about in Sumerian tablets are now talked about in this epic. So these people, these beings are talked about. Now, these beings' names also show up in other places. Don't think they're just showing up in these ancient tablets. It was also copied into the Bible. You can find Marduk and Enlil and all their names in the Bible. You can find it in the Quran. You can find it in the Torah. You can find it in the Jewish American Library as well. You can go right to.
Why is that name in all of these texts? Think about that. Why can you find that name specifically in all of these texts? Let alone the Bible. That goes back to what he was saying earlier. That the Bible was copied along with other religious texts and stories. Now you see how that name pops up in all of these texts. Find out more.
JewishAmericanLibrary.org, and you can pull all these people up. They're in there, but nobody ever reads them or realizes that they're reading about people that were talked about in these ancient Sumerian tablets and in the Terra papers. We also have written evidence of the Anunnaki engaging mankind after a global flood 36,000 years ago. This is how far back this flood goes. The flood didn't just happen, 5,000 years ago, 4,000, 3,000. No, this flood is very, very old. Very, very old flood. And I'm going to.
The flood, the Ice Age. I might do a video on it. We gotta talk and see. But the flood was recorded not just in Mesopotamia's area, but also it's been recorded in Britain. But the two things that, remember that picture I told you to pay attention to? And it had the little planet with stars going around it. Some of y'all might have heard of Planet X, Nibiru, Planet K932, whatever they wanted to call it on the news. Some people call it Planet Hell. Well, that planet has a obstruct, not like oval, but it's more oval, but like oblique, kind of like how the Earth is, kind of rotation and orbit. But I gotta say, when it's time for it to come, as two planets do, in close proximity of each other, they tell you, look, there's Mars, there's Jupiter. You can see it. Get a telescope. But when there's an eclipse, they're not going to tell you it was Planet X, Nibiru, whatever they want to call it, or what you choose to call it. But if you ever go and watch an eclipse, look behind the sun and the whole sky and watch as the shadow passes by. You'll see a planet shadow bigger than the sun and the earth combined. It'll make you wonder. But every time that planet comes in close proximity, there has been a devastation. They said it has a hot side and it has a cold side. And it's not his first time, because when it comes, it gives signs through the eclipses. So with the eclipse are like a counter. So after a certain amount of counts, you get to know, okay, it's coming back around. Hence, why you see they say people speed up and people are doing this and that and stuff is ramping up. They're on a time. We're not. Time really doesn't exist. But time's really a figment of imagination and what you make of it. Time is what you make of it. But this planet has caused the ice age and the flood, and its recordings of time that it has come around. The only reason we was able to find out about the ice age was because we tracked the orbital path for how many years it comes around. The crazy thing is, that number right there, 36,000. He's going to get Billy Carson explained a little bit more about the 36,000 years. Every single time there's 36,000 years, that planet comes back around. And it's a marking period for not only the Anunnaki, but for the world and the galaxy. It gets real deep when you research into it. Well, I don't know if you can get the research no more, with everything being changed over and taken over on Google. You'll find more about that happening, how Google got changed over and taken over and everything like that on our website. If you're a member, you'll find out. If not, become a member. But it's crazy because the way they have time changed up with the calendar, you have to revert back to the old ways just to track it. But there's always something. And I can tell you one thing. As it gets closer, you're going to notice the magnetic field of the earth change. Poles are going to shift. Again, there's going to be another continental shift. Africa split in half. All the way at the bottom. Continental shift. Plates never stopped moving. It's just when that counter hits that time and that planet comes around with that magnetic field and pulse that it has and pulls on the Earth's magnetic field and gravity, a lot of stuff gonna get shook up. Makes you wonder how they made that 2025 map they were talking about what's gonna happen. Now they talking about supposed to be what, 2100 or 2150. I gotta go back and look at the little article that they came out with. But yeah, it's just when you get into this research and this history, and you find out this planet keeps coming around and the same thing keeps happening, you'll start to understand the cycles and the mindset of life. Then you'll be on your way. Everything has a cycle. Everything. That's just the way life is. That's just the way life works. Can't do nothing about it. Can't stop it. Just make the best of it and live it. That's all you can do. But now you need to know how to make the best of bad situations and turn them into great and positive and abundant situations. Change your mindset.
Bring up some evidence about that shortly. But this is from the Emerald Tablet. This is why I had to write this book. When I went into the book, the very first few verses were talking about flood waters residing over the planet and mountain tops starting to come back up. And I go, whoa, well, right away I'm going, wait a minute. I'm looking at an ancient record of a flood here in this 36,000-year-old text. And this is what, when he, at the time that he wrote it, this is around the time that the flood actually occurred, or this major global flood. I'm going to read it to you. Over the world then broke the great waters, drowning and sinking, changing Earth's balance, until only the temple of light was left, standing on the great mountain of Undal, still rising out of the water. Some who were living, saved from the rush of the fountain. So some people survived, just like it said in the Bible and everywhere else you meet it, the Epic of Gilgamesh and everything else. Called me then the master, saying, gather ye together my people, take them by the arts ye have learned far across the waters. So he's telling him, his master is his boss or his supervisor. It's actually Enki who's talking to him, his thought me.
Now, continental shift. Mountains formed. Anybody ever seen the video of how the Himalayas was formed and how mountains were formed by two land masses clashing together? Not trying to discredit our Father and Creator, God, Yahuwah, Yah, however you choose. There's only one Creator that controls and created everything. But He made that planet too. And don't get into no thing about God as a woman, God as a man. Once you learn everything, God is masculine and feminine at the same time. That's how you get the whole idea of where they came up with the Baphomet. That's what the whole Baphomet idea came from, of being a man and a woman. And it's pointing up and down, all it's saying, as above, so below. On earth as it is in heaven. All they did was just make a statue and change the words, saying something different. Same thing. It's all connected. Everything has the same meanings of the storyline, just represented different. That's all it is. Same story, just represented different, told different, explained different. As things go down, it's just like telephone. Look at the Christmas story. Telephone story for real. If you go to the origins of Christmas, then you ended up with a demon that was taking kids to a demon that was giving kids to Santa Claus giving kids presents and toys. But it originated in Mesopotamia. Same as Easter did. in Mesopotamia is where it originated. Stop encouraging other values that are not your own. Pass down your family values and traditions and teach and inspire your next generation's imagination and creativity. Look at some of the kids 10 years ago into today. You never know what they may make or create that may change the world. But with this planet here, it changed the balance of the earth, gravitational and magnetic pull. They tell you a comet took out the dinosaurs and separated Pangea to all the little continents. But they had signs before the flood even happened. They had signs that it was coming. Just like Noah had signs. Just like you're getting signs now, with Africa splitting in half. There's another pole shift that's coming. Who knows? That map may be right. It might not. Nobody knows. All they can do is simulate and map it out through simulations, or a computer anyways. But every 36,000 years, the magnetic pull on Earth's gravity is drastically changing the geological and geographic areas of the Earth. Think about it. If you go back and look at some maps from the 1500s, Antarctica was not covered in snow. Shoot, you'll find out there was more land and places of Antarctica if you dig deep enough into the maps. There were people living there. But it's like, how did they know people lived there? So to us, it may seem like 300 years, but again, you're going by the wrong calendar. When the Mayans were talking about 2012, their calendar was marking geographical stuff that was about to happen. That Mayan calendar was the end of the beginning of them 36,000 years. That was a sign for the world and everybody else to be able to get ready for the next geological, graphical event to Earth. Because how did the Mayans get that information? Billy Carson's going to explain it to you. But look into the Nibiru and its orbits and what happens in this time period.
He's telling Thoth to take his crew, get his crew together, everything I taught you how to save this or help these people, take all that knowledge and wisdom with you to this place across the waters and help bring them back to a higher level. You'll see that. Until you reach the land of the hairy barbarians dwelling in the caves of the desert, follow there the plan that ye know of. So Thoth said, okay, I'll do it. He gathered I then my people and entered the great ship of the master. So they went into a ship. But listen to this. Upward we rose.
He's about to explain this ship. Now, You got to remember, everything was connected and then just got separated. So when you find out Thoth has to go and start over, you'll find out that a lot of the stuff that's how the Incas and the Aztecs found his creation that he created when he had to start over. And because he lived through that flood and he kept records, he made that map and timeline to 2012 to give people warning of the climatic events that were going to be a catastrophe. For example, Japan had ancestors that wrote in stone, "Do not live here or build here for tsunami warning and flood." Did they listen? No. And then a tsunami happened. And this was after 2012. But you also find out how long ago those stones were written on by the Japanese peoples and ancestors. It lines up with that map showing Antarctica being green and flourished. Just like the Bible says, the desert used to be green and flourished. It's just like, how did it all disappear? Well, I don't know if he explains it in this video, but he might. There was a war with the Anunnakis. The war was so big with nuclear explosions. Now you know where nuclear bombs idea came from. Nothing's new under the sun, so if you have an idea and don't use it, or it's just floating in the atmosphere, somebody's going to get it and grab it and take off with it. And if you got an idea, go ahead, pursue your goals and your dreams. You're going to watch somebody else live it. Now, with all of this, you find out there's sand in the desert, but if you dig deep enough, there's glass. But the Bible also talks about the greenery in Egypt. It was like a garden. Why did that change? What happened to make that happen? Not the war, but what on earth literally started the war? What caused it?
Into the morning. Now, I haven't been on a ship that rose up yet. Has anybody here been on a ship that rose up? I haven't. Okay. Dark beneath us lay the temple. So they're obviously ascending to a high level where the temple is becoming like a dark, faint object. Suddenly, over it rose the waters, vanished from the earth until a time appointed. So they actually left the atmosphere. They're gone. They're up in the atmosphere. Fast we fled toward the sun of the morning until beneath us lay the land of the children of Chem. Beneath us. So they're in a ship that doesn't sail out into an ocean. They're on a ship that flies and then it descends. The land of Chem is ancient Egypt. That is the original name of Egypt before the modern name Egypt, which is a fairly new name. The place was called the land of Chem. And that's where you get the term, because of Thoth teaching people there, the words chemistry and alchemy come out of the land of Chem. That's where it all re-originated after the Great Flood and retaught. Raging they came with cudgels and spears, lifted in anger, seeking to slay the sons of Atlantis. So when he landed his ship, these barbarian people at the land of Chem, trying to defend their territory, came to attack. Then I raised my staff and directed a ray of vibration, striking them still in their tracks as fragments of stone in the mountain. So he had some type of a stun gun in ancient times. So when I got to this point, I said, okay, I got to find out everything about this guy in this book. I need to know everything about this whole thing. I literally just dug into it. I probably read it about 400 or 500 times now because I really want to just get a really good understanding of what he was saying. I mean, this guy's talking about technology, and in the book I talk about this technology and what we have today that actually does the same exact thing. We have something called active denial system in the military today, right now, and the active denial system, if you come to attack a group of people or their location or target or even riot, they have a system where they point this ray at you that's invisible, and it literally jingles the atoms in your body and makes you feel like you're on fire and turns you away. This is amazing. So we have the active denial system, which I showed in the book, and also we have this guy 36,000 years ago talking about using a frequency technology to do the same thing. Then he says, long dwelt we in the land of Chem, long and yet long again. So we're talking thousands of years, until obeying the commands of the master, so until he fulfilled his mission, who while sleeping yet lives eternally. So these guys, they have the ability to put bodies in these, you don't see it here, but in the book I talk about it. They have these halls of Amenti where they have these chambers where they put avatar bodies in. So while they put an avatar body in a regeneration chamber, they walk amongst men in another avatar body. This is why they have so many different names. And then they would transfer their consciousness from one body to another. And they always say, we walk amongst men like a man, but unlike a man. And this is what they're talking about. That from the womb of time, wisdom might rise again in her children. So it's amazing technology that they had, information and knowledge and wisdom they had back then that they.
I'm going to keep saying it and keep telling you and keep expressing it. Nothing is new under the sun. It's amazing. They weren't able to do that in the 1600s, 1700s, the 1800s. Why? What dumbed down society? What caused society to fall? Again, look what happened to the education system in the 1920s. And here it is 100 years later. Look into the education system now. Be surprised.
He used to interact with mankind. Now, the reason why I like Thoth a lot was because, unlike his relatives, he didn't masquerade as a god. He was only deified by the pyramid priests after he left Egypt and never came back for many thousands of years. They said this guy was God. You know, the story just kept going on and on. Next thing you know, he was a god. But when these barbarians in the book, when these barbarians groveled at his feet, he said, no, stand up. I'm just a son of Atlantis. I'm just here to teach you and help you. And he had an opportunity right then and there to say, yeah, I'm your God, pray to me, bow to me, and everything else. But he didn't do that. He didn't masquerade as a god like his relatives did. So let's talk a little bit about Egypt now as we go into this bloodline. last native pharaoh of Egypt was Nectambio II, who was pharaoh before the Achaemenids conquered Egypt for the second time. The Achaemenid rule over Egypt came to an end through the conquest of Alexander the Great in 332 BC, after which it was ruled by the Hellenic pharaohs of the Ptolemaic dynasty. A lot of people are under the illusion that Egypt was only, the whole time, was just one race or another. Egypt has ruled over by many different races of people over thousands of years. Everybody had their hand in Egypt over a period of time. It was every single race you could think of. It just wasn't one race or the other. Toward the end of Egypt's reign, it was more of a Caucasian race. Alexander the Great victory over Persia, over the Persians, was welcomed in ancient Egypt. That was no longer, I kind of wrote that a little wrong there, over Egypt, that was no longer dominating kingdom after being conquered earlier by the Persians. So when Alexander the Great entered Egypt, people saw him as a liberator who had freed the Egyptians from many years of brutal oppression at the hands of the Persian Empire. The Persians had taken over Egypt. They had basically defeated Egypt in ancient times, and then Alexander the Great came and really was a liberator. He was actually looked at like, wow, thank you for beating these people up and taking them out of here, because they were killing us. He was really looked on and thought of as a great person in Egypt when he came and took over. He relieved them from a lot of the oppression. Alexander the Great, who was only 24-year-old at the time, was crowned pharaoh in Memphis. He visited the temple of the oracle of Amun, and the great Macedonian conqueror was declared the son of God, Amun, which actually there's a lot of records that show that supposedly Alexander the Great was half Anunnaki, who Amun, or Amen-Ra, was his dad, and his brother was a human being. This is a very special title because Amun was worshipped as the Egyptian creator god. He was considered the king of the gods and the physical father of all pharaohs. There's a lot of information out there that you can look online. It talks about Alexander the Great as he went on this conquest in his early 20s to conquer most of the area, most of these countries.
Why did they all masquerade as a god? Why did Thoth not masquerade as a god? But Thoth had the powers of a god. In the Bible, it says, let's make him in our image. Who is our? Which means there was more than one God. Which means when you do your research, like he was saying, you find out there's mistranslations, and God really is Elohim, and Elohim is plural, meaning more than one God. Then you have Jesus say he and his Father are one, that he is God. Why did he say that? Why did the Egyptians masquerade as gods? But Jesus didn't masquerade as a god. He just said he and his Father are one. Thoth didn't masquerade as a god. So it makes you wonder, why Jesus said, didn't your Father say ye are gods? Well, yes, it does say that in there. So what does it all mean? It also could mean you're a god. Not like our Father, the Creator, but you have his creative abilities and unlimited possibilities based off of what was bestowed upon you and the focus and discipline you apply in your life with the knowledge you gain. But you have to do the work, stay focused and disciplined in the work to remain a God. For you are a God of your environment, not anyone else. You don't have control over anyone else. You're a God of your environment, which means you control what happens in your life, whether it be positive or negative. It goes back to what I was saying earlier. There's always sun on the storm. So every bad turn is going to be a straight path of sunshine. You got to go through some curves in life. You got to get that endurance, that experience, that tough skin, be able to handle the blessing that's going to come towards you for pushing through that storm. And that blessing is a gift to prepare you for the next storm and challenge your head. Because if it was easy, everybody would be doing it. What you gonna do?
With UFOs flying ahead of him and helping him in battle. And he was told that his father was a god, and when he got to Egypt, he discovered that Amun-Ra was supposedly his real father. Who still runs the planet till this very day? Who owns all the media? Rothschild and Rockefeller. They own everything. They've literally got their hands in it. Who owns the central bank? Rothschild and Rockefeller. Listen, it's all the seeds, everything. They own everything. They control. They have $700 trillion of wealth. They control this entire planet, and they run this entire planet. They are literally at the top of the pyramid, and with 13 families helping them rule underneath them, 7.5 billion people on this planet. And so that's why I said in the beginning of this presentation, there's 7.5 billion of us on this planet, and we allow 13 families to run and control us and do everything, tell us what to do, eat, think, smell, feel, touch, everything.
This is what we mean by think for yourself. Do your research. Because what he's saying is true. Now you know how the bloodline is still here. Now you know where the other bloodline will come in at. Now you know why these wars are happening. You get access to a portal or Stargate. But if you don't do any of that, what do you have? Peace. But like I said, everybody don't know everything. Everybody can't do everything. So, as they say, some people work with their hands, some people work with their heads. They chose to manipulate. But because you believed and listened, you chose your own demise. Whether you realize that if you look through history, society has chosen its own demise. It always goes for stuff that is not really going to help it grow, better itself, or the communities. We have to better ourselves, help better others by passing down the knowledge, truth, and wisdom. And that's what we're here to retain. We're doing our best, but with all these restrictions, we're trying to figure something out. That's why we made the website. Certain stuff we just can't post without being flagged. So you gotta realize it's all connected, even way back then till now. But what part are you gonna do to make it a better life for you?
It's got to come to an end. But that's when it started in terms of being handed down to them directly from Amun-Ra, was at the end of that last pyramid war, when a lot of the pharaohs were fleeing out of Egypt and taking themselves, as I'll show you next, into Europe. He handed down everything and control over to the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers. And until this day, that's who owns it. So Egypt was conquered by Alexander the Great, Rome, Nubia, Babylon, Sudan, Kush, and Persia. Like I said before, Egypt had many different races of rulers. It wasn't just all black people, and it wasn't just all white people. It was a mixture of every single type of person you could think of ruled over this place at one particular time or another over many, many thousands of years. So as the Egyptians the pharaohs began to migrate out of Egypt, realizing their time had come to a complete end, these pharaonic families, I should say, they migrated. I'm sure this isn't the exact route they took, but this is Google Maps, okay? Just want to make that clear. But they migrated to England, to Europe, and they went probably around the long way, I'm sure. But as they went and traveled, migrating through, you can imagine how long it took back then to get from point A to point B, as we're looking here, through the land masses and through, small ships and so forth. It took a very long time. But through that process, they made it with other people in different lands, in Turkey and Bulgaria and Romania and Germany. And so they got to England, and they began to create kingdoms and monarchies. Okay, people say, why is England all about Egyptian motif and pyramids and all this kind of obelisk and everything else? It's because they have a deep root in Egyptian history. Let's look at the history of Anglo-Saxon England. Anglo-Saxon England was early medieval England, existing from the 5th to the 11th centuries, from the end of the Roman Britain until the Norman conquest in 1066. It consisted of various Anglo-Saxon kingdoms until 927, when it was united as the Kingdom of England by King Aslan. It became part of the short-lived North Sea Empire. And basically what they're saying is the Anglo-Saxons were members of the Germanic-speaking groups. As you know, they migrated through Germany to get there, who migrated to the southern half of the island of Great Britain from nearby northwestern Europe, and their cultural descendants, Anglo-Saxon history, thus begins during the period of the sub-Roman Britain, following the end of the Roman control, and traces of the establishment of the Anglo-Saxon kingdoms in the 5th and 6th centuries. But what they're saying here is that these pharaonic family lines migrated up into Europe, and then they started this Anglo-Saxon dynasty, basically is what they're trying to say. And from this, we're now moving forward into the future, into the ruling elite that are controlling this planet till this very day. We're getting a lot closer to it. Half of European men share King Tut's DNA. This is real science, guys. You can go to
Now, remember earlier I said that flood incident was recorded in 2 places. Only 2 places was it recorded. Now you understand how that information got there and was recorded exactly the way it was in Egypt. Because in Britain, they have the same exact stone pictolation in there. That's in Egypt. Go check it out. See what else you might find and discover when you're researching. Don't hesitate.
Reuters.com. You can go to the medical journals and look it all up. Half of European men share King Tut's DNA. Because why? Because that's where they went. We went to Europe. Oh, they went to Europe, and along the way, mating with various different races, by the time they got there, a lot of them ended up being a different color of person. But the DNA doesn't lie. The DNA can be traced back to King Tut, basically to the Egyptians is really what it's saying. So these Anglo-Saxon people are really the offspring of, or the bloodline of these pharaonic people, these pharaonic bloodlines. Timeline of kings and queens of England. The Plantagenets, which is a very important name because this is where it really begins to take hold on us here in America. The Plantagenets were a huge, powerful family, not just in England, but throughout Europe. The first Plantagenet was King Henry II, whose father owned vast lands in Anjou, an area as big as Normandy around the modern town of Tours. But if you look down a little bit, you see this dynasty is normally subdivided into 3 parts. The first Plantagenet kings were Avengens, and the next were the Plantagenets. This is very important information because the Plantagenet bloodline is the bloodline that all the presidents of the United States are all related to. So you have the very bottom, from 1399 to 1485, the House of Lancaster of York, normally separated from mainstream Plantagenets because they are considered the first truly English rather than French kings. So when French kings started taking over in England, it was kind of the end of the Plantagenet thing, but the bloodline of the Plantagenets continued to move on, and which is directly related to the Sumerian kings. John Lackland was the king of England from 1199 until his death in 1216.
Y'all keeping up with this? You seeing how all this stuff is connected? Remember I was talking about how the war started, and there was peace, and there was war started. Then you hear about in the Bible, the people are coming, we went to Africa. Shoot. If you dig deep enough, you might even find out that the Israelites in the Bible, you ain't gonna find it in a regular Bible. You gotta go read the other books of the Bible they took out. But you'll find out that they had a war peace deal with the Romans. And they went to war with the Romans. And you'll find out how the Roman society really started to fall and decline. Let's look into stuff like that.
John lost the Duchy of Normandy as and most of the other French lands to the King Philip of France, King Philip II of France, resulting in the collapse of the Avenging Empire and contributing to the subsequent growth and power of the French. So basically, one of his big failures was the fact that as he ruled, unfortunately, it was when they lost to the French, and the French began to take over England and began to rule over them, and become their monarchy, supposedly or basically. But the bloodline of these people still exist and still continue to run. So just to the point where we are right now, let's just take a look at this, a brief summary. We go back to
Before you go over his brief summary, now you understand who it is that's controlling the world. You understand how it is they're controlling the world. But do you see the history and the pattern and the line? The facts are facts, which is true, which is knowledge, which can give you wisdom. And once you put the pieces together, you'll find out all of this goes back to the way it was in the beginning, where they wanted workers to work for them. It all comes back around in a cycle. Everything's a cycle. If you don't know your history, you are fully doomed to repeat it. You got to put the pieces together. No person has all the answers, so you got to put everything together. That's where we come in. We're going to try to put all of this stuff together so y'all can be able to grow and elevate and keep striving high for positivity and abundance. Look through it all. Look at the connections. Look how everything's connected. Like I've been saying, nothing's new under the sun. And see. Use your mind and read for yourself. Do your own research. And discover the truth. It will make you free. Not set you free, make you free. I don't know where the truth set you free, because there's people in jail. The truth is out there, but it ain't setting them free. But spiritually, there's people in jail who know the truth and are at peace. But they know you gotta realize you're only trapped. You're only trapped in your own mind when you don't educate yourself. And being trapped in that mind, you put yourself in a position where or either you put yourself in a position of being stagnant. And when you do that, You got to figure out what's next. What are you going to do? How are you being stagnant and content benefiting you and your family? And how does that help you and your next generation? But you got to keep striving forward. If you ain't growing, you're dying. What do you want to do? You get younger every day.
The Sumerian kings. If we go back to Sumerian kings, it's before the flood. We've got the Sumerian kings. As now, the Sumerian kings who ruled for thousands and thousands of years, now then had these pharaonic lines after the Great Flood that they kind of handed over the leadership to be the liaison between them and the human beings. Now, these people, these pharaonic bloodlines in the beginning were half human and half Atlantean or half Anunnaki, depending on how you want to call it. They would only give the initial power, this pharaonic power, to somebody who had their blood in them. So these pharaonic people are directly related to the Sumerian kings. Then you have them getting conquered and kind of moving out of the area over time and migrating, the bloodlines migrating across into Europe. Now they're a monarchy. So you see, we go from the Sumerian kings list in ancient Iraq all the way now, we've gone with this bloodline taken all the way into Europe. This is where we are right now. It was they who managed, it was a base. So you look at here for, this is the Rothschild and Rockefeller, by the way, at the top. Now, one of them obviously passed away, but they still have family members that still take the place, you know, of where they were and continue to do.
You hear that? They passed away, but they have family to take the place and do the things that they wanted to do. This is why the first 7 years of your children's, your sons and daughters' lives. The reason I say children is because some of y'all are raising other people's kids that are not your own. You can't call them your son and daughter. It might be your niece and nephew. It might be your grandchild or your great-grandchild. But legally, always say son and daughter. Father and mother. Don't say parents. But besides the point. If y'all want to know more about that, go get y'all a Black's Law Dictionary and look into that. But how can I put this? You want to be able to pass on your knowledge and your wealth to your next generation and the generation and the generation and generation. Don't be like the Vanderbilts and don't pass it on and then the family go broke. You must be able to create generational wealth. And that was their idea, to create generational wealth. But they don't want you to play the game. And then that's competition for them. So by controlling everything, you only can get so far. Because you have to go through them at a certain point. But their whole goal is generational wealth. And making sure can't nobody take that. And there's been a few times people found other ways. There's always more than one way to skin a cat. But you have to be willing to create generational wealth, to pass on what you have and your assets. Because a will, that ain't gonna save you from probate. None of that. It's a video on our website where we go over with some detail and insight about how Christina is out here helping people create generational wealth, helping people set up trust for their family and guiding them. But you have to do the work. Don't just run off on a whim, as they say. Understand everything before you do something. Like they used to say, man is how to put something together without reading the manual. You see, you can't even do that no more. They got the manuals now where it's all picture and letters. You got to figure it out. That'd be a pain. But again, well, it ain't really a pain for me per se. Because most of the time, if I want something, I go out and build it. We're going to be showing you how to do that stuff too, and talking about that also, giving y'all insight. Because if you don't know how to do it for yourself, who's going to be doing for you? And then who really going to be saying what you can and can't do, what you can and can't eat, what you should and shouldn't eat? And what I mean by can and can't and should and shouldn't, you can eat this, but you can't eat that. You shouldn't eat that because it has this in it, but you should eat this. But we added something extra. And you don't know what the extra is. That's kind of where what they have on the back now is chemical something. I can't really remember off the top. But read the back. A lot of your stuff got chemical or bio something in your food and drinks. And the FDA ain't even got to tell you. We're like that when they were doing everything from 2020 to 2024, it was all boom, free for all, and keep up. But now they're regulating it, not moderately, eyeball-y. It looks good. Go ahead, send it. But do your research and look into stuff. Start building generational wealth for your family and educating your family. We're trying to retain this generation's knowledge and last generation's knowledge and past generation's knowledge for the next generation to come up to be able to strive. But we can't do it without y'all. What good is knowledge if it's not applied? Think about it.
The same exact things. But it was these guys who arranged for Hitler to take power through the Illuminati. Secret societies in Germany, like the Thule Society and the Vril Society, which created their German networks. It was the Rothschilds who funded Hitler through the Bank of England and other British and American sources like the Rothschild-Kuhn Loeb Bank, which also funded the Russian Revolution. The very heart of Hitler's war machine was the chemical giant IG Farben, which had an American arm that was controlled by the Rothschilds through their lackeys and the warbugs. The warbugs and the lackeys are basically the people who started the Illuminati. Okay? These people even control the Illuminati. They control everything. All right. Paul Warburg, who manipulated into existence the privately owned Central Bank of America, the Federal Reserve, in 1913, was on the board of the American IG, indeed Hitler's IG Farben, which ran the slave labor camp at Auschwitz, was in reality a division of Standard Oil, officially owned by the Rockefellers. Put in truth, the Rockefeller Empire was funded into existence by the Rothschilds. So they helped each other out, and they came up, and they looking to take over the world, which they still did it anyway. Now, one thing that's very interesting is the fact that you see Hitler there. Hitler was actually a Rothschild. A lot of people don't even know this. Hitler was a Rothschild, and they helped him gain power. They're the ones who expedited him to power. That's how he got there. Then you have Operation Paperclip. Remember earlier it said that as these...
Y'all need to look into a lot of these military projects and a lot of these operations, simulations, summits. Y'all need to pay attention to that stuff. Because you got Paperclip, Project Bluebeam, man. Just sitting here thinking about it, there's so much that's running through from all of the files that we done read and went over. All right. Like, it don't make no sense. And it's all military experiments. The Tuskegee experiment, like, it's all experiments. That's all it is. Until you had to get a view card, there won't no sickness. Until you had to get a MU card, there won't no sickness. How can I say this? You gotta be willing to want to know the truth and do your research. Because if not, what's gonna happen is this. You're going to go through this whole motion of living your life, and you're gonna hit maybe about 74, sometimes maybe 80. And either somebody gonna ask you this question or you're gonna ask yourself, what have you accomplished with your life? And once you hit that question and you look back on life, you're gonna wonder the years you wasted and knowledge you wish you would have had now back then. And you want to know what's crazy? The knowledge was always there. We just never chose to go do the research. Nothing's new under the sun. Yes, it's hidden, but the Bible says, seeking you shall find. You expect it to fall in your lap? That ain't how life works. If everybody had everything handed to them, shoot, life would be peachy. But that ain't how life works. It has to always be a polarity. Hot, cold, summer, winter, negative, positive. You just got to keep striving high. At the end of the day, if not, it'll be a lot that you want to go through life and deal with, and a lot that you want to deal with in life that's just, for me, unnecessary, stressful, for no reason. You don't even need it in your life. But if you knew the secret on how to get rid of it and deal with it, you would go research and find out then. Just like a lot of people don't do nothing about something until it's too late when they have an issue with it. Don't wait till you have an issue to go and research and try to find the answers. Learn and know and understand the answers before the issue even arises. Smart people learn from experiences. Geniuses learn from not just their experiences, but others. Put yourself ahead of the group. There's always going to be a group that you're going to have to walk past, because not everybody's going to go the same direction. And not everybody's going to be on that same path. And not everybody is going to want to research or do the work to better themselves. So, are you going to make the choice to change today? Change your life? Do one thing to better yourself? One thing, and then to the next thing, and then to the next thing. You got to begin with the knowledge so you can get the truth and have the wisdom. Let's get back into it. But do your research. Look these projects and military experiments up.
Pharaonic lines had migrated up. They became the kingdoms of England. It was originally German in nature, Germanic. Well, that's why you have a lot of people like in Germany, like Hitler, who was rose to power, and then you have Operation Paperclip, Project Paperclip, I'm sorry, which was really an operation done by the U.S. military to acquire a lot of their scientists that were operating under Hitler. And through Project Paperclip, there was a secret program of joint intelligence objectives that they basically took all of these scientists. It wasn't just a few. A lot of people didn't know that it was about 1,600 of them that they went to Germany and took and brought to the United States. And they put them in positions of power immediately. They put them in positions of power. You had people running NASA. You had people running NACA, who was before NASA. You had people running different aerospace companies. You had people running parts of the CIA that were Nazis, directly from Germany to here, working in the government.
When you start looking at the history in World War II, you'll find out in your research also, a lot of y'all may know this, some of y'all may not. A lot of the people that helped create this stuff with them chemical gases and I'm trying to think of the right word to not get flagged, but the what's a good word to not get flagged on when saying this? When you look at the creations that they made and you see it, at the end of the day, the people that created that stuff, they didn't get rid of them. In their mind, if you see someone create something great, use them, employ them, hire them. For example, when the government was getting hacked, they hired the hackers that hacked them so they couldn't get hacked no more. when they made the atomic bomb to drop on Hiroshima, where do you think them plans were drawn up at? Or better yet, what scientists you think drew it up? They weren't from England. They were from Germany. And you find out on the greatest story never told that it was a bank that contacted Winston Churchill. A bank in Germany contacted Winston Churchill. I'll put that together. A bank in Germany contacted Winston Churchill in England. England was the one that set up the building of the bomb. They built it, but they had scientists from Germany helping them in World War II. You get how all of this is playing, how all of this is a cycle, how all of this is full circle. Pretty much in one group didn't like how the other group was running things and started to push back, and then the other group was like, we can't have this, and now history becomes his story. Let me break that down again and say it a little bit faster but slow. History becomes his story. The victor gets to write the story in the history of what really happened. Take trips, travel outside the US, go see the truth for yourself, the artifacts, foundations of it all. Go see for yourself. Just don't believe, do your research. You don't believe me? Go take a trip, see it for yourself, and do your own research. Because at the end of it all being said, this is just a war amongst people that are families. It's just like you warring with your cousin. You and your cousin had a disagreement. Now y'all want to fight about it. That's all it is. And it's all over generational wealth and money. Some families work together, some families don't. That's why you got two sides. There's a balance. Everything has to have a balance. Everything has to have two sides, a polarity. There's a negative polarity, and there's a positive polarity. They're at war. You got good and evil. God say he creates evil. He creates good. So good and evil. There's a balance. It's always been a balance. You can't take from nothing. Something has to replace. Just the way the mindset of life works. Look it up. Check it out.
And not just a few, like I said, 1,600 of them. You can look it up. We became the Fourth Reich. George Bush's father, the late U.S. Senator Prescott Bush, was a director and shareholder of the companies that profited from their involvement with the financial backers of Nazi Germany. The Guardian has obtained confirmation from newly discovered files in the U.S. National Archives that a firm which Prescott Bush was the director was involved with the financial architects of Nazism. His business dealings, which continued until the company's assets were seized in 1942 under the Trading with the Enemy Act, has led to more than 60 years later to civil action, damages being brought to in Germany. I mean, basically what they're saying is Prescott Bush, through this private bank that he started, and U.S. money, had helped fund Hitler and help him become powerful, along with the Rothschilds and Rockefellers, with their help. They were all working together. This is one big giant family. Okay, this is very important to know, because when you realize that the Bushes are related directly to the Rothschilds, and the Rothschilds are directly related to the Pharaohs, and the Pharaohs are directly related to the Sumerian kings, who are Anunnakis. It's a very important thing that a lot of people don't know about when George Washington.
You see that? How I said it's all connected, and you see how it was just families going back and forth. Some work together, some don't. Now you wonder how all the presidents get the same bloodline. Let's keep checking some more out. This is getting interesting, isn't it?
Was going to become the president of the United States, a very interesting thing happened. It was really an agreement made. We're going to allow you to take over this new land, and they actually offered him the option of being called a king or a president. He said, "No, I'll be called a president. Gives the people the illusion of separation." Who's still ruling America? Not us. 45 facts about the 45 presidents. Every single president in the United States of America was related to John Lacton, the King of England, the Plantagenet king, except for Van Buren. Van Buren is the only one that was not related. Van Buren was still related to British royalty, but at that particular election, they didn't have a suitable puppet to put in place, so they had to put somebody else who at least was British royalty. But Van Buren was the only one that wasn't related. Every single president, all the way till this very current day, including Obama, including Trump, are all related directly to the Sumerian kings. This is where we are coming to. We're coming to the point now where we're starting to realize who's running and controlling this planet till this very day. The illusion of, or the lie about all people can be traced back to one person is an absolute fallacy. If you look into the ancient tablets, if you just go into, first of all, you go into the Bible. Let's go into the New Age religions, the Bible. You go into the Bible and you look at the story of Adam and Eve, and you have Adam and Eve, you have Cain and Abel. Cain kills Abel. The next thing you know, God comes back. He's pissed off. He kicks him out. The first thing Cain says is, if I go out there, the people are going to kill me. What people? There was already millions of people on this planet long before Adam and Eve had Cain and Abel. Long before Adam and Eve even showed up on the scene, there were already millions of people on this planet. People were here already, so God put a mark on his head so that the people would know, don't touch him because he's basically my dude, you know, in a way. That God was actually Enlil. If you look into the Sumerian tablets, it's Enlil. If you look into some of the other ancient scriptures, you discover it was Satan, the Lord of Eden. Okay? Who is it? It's this Enlil character who also calls himself Yahweh. There's also another name that he uses in modern day Bible is Yahweh. It's Enlil is the one who's responsible for a lot of it. What he tried to do was blame his brother for a lot of his ill doings and say that his brother was the serpent. But that was Enki. Enki was the one trying to help humans and felt bad for us, and Enlil was the one trying to literally just treat us like animals and destroy us. So, you know, he was a pretty evil dude. But people are not all related because people were created in various different methods. Some evolved, some people were genetically modified. In the Sumerian tablets, they talk about genetically modifying or taking clones of genetically modified beings, and they weren't able to replicate sexually, and they couldn't make enough of them fast enough, according to these tablets, so they started looking into how can we then do artificial insemination. They didn't say that exact phrase, but they describe it on this famous tablet where I think it's Ninhursag or Isis takes the egg from an existing hominid, cleans up the genetic material, they then insert the Anunnaki DNA and genetic material into it. She puts it in her womb and takes it to full term in 10 months and gives birth to something called the Adamu, which means first man. Yes. So this is basically the beginning stages of Homo sapiens sapien is what we're looking at here about 200,000 years ago. So we're talking about the fact that they're trying to say everybody's related to one person in Africa. It doesn't exist. It's fake. So what we have here, we have a bloodline that's been running this planet for thousands of years, hundreds of thousands of years. They came here 450,000 years ago, about 200,000.
Now, all these years have passed by, and the same thing. One's using the brain and one's using their hands. Somebody's working for somebody, and it's over and over and over and over. To the point now, people think it's a tradition to go to school, get a good education, and get a job, and leave nothing behind to the kids but some debt. Kids arguing in probate over the will, and the property gets sold. We've seen it happen. Y'all probably seen it happen. Property gets sold, split up, court gets a cut, lawyer gets a cut, the kids get whatever left. You got to break the cycle. The mindset of life has a cycle for you to live peacefully and abundantly. But you have to stick to that cycle. That's the main cycle they had y'all break. And they put y'all on a whole nother cycle that has its own timeline and own calendar. And got y'all to live in that cycle of life rather than the mindset of life cycle. Because when you understand the mindset of life, you understand a lot how it all comes together. And you understand how you and your family can strive through it all. Because the secret is right in front of your face. They put it in movies and they hint at it. But they're never going to tell you directly. Because then it would be too easy and everybody would be doing it. Seek and ye shall find.
Years after that, they genetically modified the existing hominid on this planet. They then began to put us things on us like different types of economic systems, debt, and everything else. They started that way back in the Sumerian tablets. You can look and see people's debts. A lot of the tablets that have been discovered show IOUs, people owing sheep for corn and all kind of crazy stuff. And it also shows the level of inflation that existed back then, that the Anunnaki established all the way back thousands of years ago, and we can still see that inflation affecting us to this current day. We then see how the Rothschild and Rockefellers were also given power by Amen-Ra, who was considered to be the sun god. He's the same person that told Akhenaten, Pharaoh Akhenaten, to go and deface all the statues and start deleting a lot of the information from the hieroglyphs around Egypt. That's why a lot of the, if you've been to Egypt like I have been, you see a lot of the noses broken off, ears broken off, and a lot of chipped away gods. It's not what a lot of people say, oh, Napoleon went and he didn't want people to know that people were black in Egypt and all this kind of stuff. I'm sorry to tell you guys, that's not the case. It's just not the case. After my research, I believed it at first too, but after I did more research and actually went there in the person and spoke with homegrown archaeologists, investigated and researched the text myself, come to find out, Amen-Ra.
Didn't I say do your own research? Didn't I say go and see the artifacts, the history for yourself, along with the foundation of it, to see where it all began, how it all started, and what it all means, and how it works. Once you get the mindset of life and you understand the cycle and how it works, You can break free from any matrix. You can break free from any mental capacity that you end up in. You can change your life. But it first starts with your mindset. And it also starts with your food, because a lot of the food controls your thoughts too. You might be thinking you just had a thought and thinking about something. Nah, you just got bad thoughts because you eating bad food. Think about it. If something's traumatized before it's killed, and that goes through the body of the body being traumatized, it does something to the tissue. Whether it's fear, beating, anything. Being shot with an arrow. The tissue, it changes. The molecular structure changes. And just like in plants, when you change the molecular structure, it changes the healing. It changes the distinctive characteristics that make it good for the body. I was about to tell y'all something else, but like I said, it's certain stuff we just can't reveal. That's why we made our website, because we were getting flagged for revealing certain stuff to the point it's becoming a positive thing for us, because it just pushes us further to drive even more to get this knowledge out to y'all. So that way, not only you, but the next generation and the generation after that and after that and after that can grow and learn. And hopefully get back to the mindset of life and not keep repeating this cycle they had going for who knows how long, according to their calendar. Because the original calendar, they got 36,000 years for a periodic date of catastrophic events. Now, we're in the year 2000. And then if you notice how time was going forward, then it went backwards to zero, and then it went to after death. I don't think anybody ever noticed that. When you go in the Bible and read the Bible, you'll see a time period where time slightly goes forward. And then something happens and it goes backwards. Till when Jesus dies, it starts to go all the way to zero and become an AD. And now you back to 6 and everything like that. And you're here to 2000. Okay, so what happened to all that time before zero? These are questions y'all supposed to be critically thinking. Like, y'all gotta want to know. There are keys in this world to unlock your potential. You gotta do the research, though. It ain't gonna be
Ordered
given to you.
Akhenaten to do this to the point where he started defacing so many glyphs that they decided they had to get rid of this guy. That's what happened with Akhenaten. They said, man, you got to go. Not only do you got to go, we're going to kill your son too. But they got rid of him, and he said he was taking orders directly from the sun disk, or the sun god, who was Amun-Ra at the time. But that's where it came from. It came from Akhenaten was defacing this stuff. But they put this system in place to keep us down, to keep us fighting each other. From this time when we had the Tower of Babel incident, where Yahweh came back, who was actually Enlil, and discovered that human beings were working together on one accord to build this structure What creator of the universe do you know would come back, that's supposed to be all-knowing and all-loving, and see people working here, his creation, working together in unison with no problems, and then destroy it, and then take them, split them apart, change their language, and then shorten their lifespans? That's the biblical story. But also, guess where they got it from? The Sumerian tablets. And what's amazing about that is, like I said last night in my other lecture, they discovered that this was true in biology, genetically. So when Yahweh came back and said, I'm going to destroy this tower, and he said, my seed shall not abide a man forever, his years will be 120. Well, they just discovered that the maximum lifespan of a human being on average should be about 120 years. They discovered how to shorten that. They discovered how to stop the shortening of the telomeres in chromosome number 2 to allow us to live much longer than we can live. This is peer-reviewed real science. They did it to mice. Mice now live 3 times the amount of the lifespan that they would have had unless they didn't stop the telomeres from shrinking. These telomere caps have buffer genetic material that literally give a little bit of a leeway for cells and DNA to replicate, because your body's consistently doing that at all times. And what happens is when you're going through this process, you need a little buffer to you don't lose any information that goes into the next cell and the next DNA strand. But they discovered they can stop that from happening, and you can still replicate your cells and your DNA in a laboratory. Which means, like I said last night, if we don't take back control of this planet, eventually they're going to start to sell us time. That's the next level of control that they're going to look for, just like the movie with Justin Timberlake, Time. It's a reality, guys. It's not fake. It's a true reality. Hey, well, you want to live for 200 years? Well, you got to do this and that. You got to come up with this amount of money or that kind of money or this kind of service or that kind of service. This is where we're getting to in the point of them ruling over us. And like I said before, I'm going to provide you with a solution. A lot of people go into rioting. They go into, they're thinking about, we're going to go picketing, and we're going to have a 10,000 man march or a 1 million man march, and we're going to walk on the streets of Washington, and we're going to do all this stuff. And what happens? We're going to vote for this president. We're going to vote for that president. What happens? It's been the same system since day number 1. Yeah, you get a little benefit from this president, a little benefit. Everybody has a little something they do, you know. Obama made it easy to get hemp or CBD oil. He signed the executive.
Didn't I tell y'all that? It's been the same cycle since the beginning. He said since day 1. So what change are you going to make today to better yourself and your family? What change are you going to make today to better others? Because it ain't going to change. The rules to the game have always been the same. You just got to pick a piece on what you're going to play. You're going to be the worker and get a job. You're going to be an investor and invest in stuff. You can go into commerce and do business. Or are you going to be someone who uses their creativity and be a guide and create something to help better the world? So are you going to be you that you're supposed to be? The you that God created and intended you to be. Our Father didn't create you and intend you to be workers. You have creativity and imagination for a reason. When you lose that, that's when you mentally become a slave to society. Always build, grow, and better yourself, your family, and others around you. You're only as good as your environment. But if you are trapped in your environment, improve your environment. Help them improve themselves. Some don't understand, some might not see. Break it down to them. Explain it to them. Because if you don't, and you go and move on and make it, then you hear the stories about, oh, you left us behind. You didn't try and take us with you. And no matter what you do, everybody can't go. The people that help you get to where you are to be a millionaire, they're not going to be able to go with you to make you a millionaire. People get content and stagnant in what they do. Don't get comfortable. When you get comfortable in what you're doing, you start to die. You got to keep trying to push and grow, learn new things, gain more knowledge so you can have the wisdom to pass on to the next generation so they can grow. The son and daughter is always supposed to be better than the mother and the father. If not, society is going backwards in your household. Get your house together, then branch out. If your house ain't in order, don't try to branch out. They're going to look at you to see what you do. There's a lot of people who going to watch you before they even do. And for some of them people, it may be too late because you may be too far up to where you don't even have the time. Because at the end of the day, you're working for time. That's all you're working for is time. To have more time with your family and everything and your loved ones. But if you could have more time, what would you do or create to give you more time? How would you make more time for you and your family to spend together and not working? Create.
Order that allowed hemp CBD oil to be legal in all 50 states. That's about the only thing I agree with that he ever did. Trump, he's made it easier to get conventional mortgages and tax breaks on businesses. I have businesses and I want conventional loans on mortgages. I give him credit for that. You got to give people credit where credit is due, but the overall, you look at the overall picture, we're still being manipulated at a very high level. Even they themselves don't have complete control and domination over us. They're taking orders from people above them. That's what you got to keep in mind. They're taking orders from people above them. And that bloodline that now is running and controlling the majority of the world with the strongest and largest army, with the most control over space, with the satellite technology and everything else, is the United States government, which is under the rulership and kingship of these bloodlines that trace all the way back to the Sumerian kings list. And how do we stop this? How do we fix this problem? The thing we got to remember is there's a lot more of us than there is of them. And it doesn't take fighting and going to war against them and all this other kind of violent stuff. We all have to come together in unison. We got to go back to the Tower of Babel. We got to say, look, we're all one. We're brothers or we're sisters. Forget about race, colors, languages, and barriers and all this other kind of crazy stuff. We have to come back together as one unit, one person, one force. And then we've got to be together spiritually and consciously. We have to understand that there's something bigger and greater than us, and you have to respect everyone's belief systems and everyone's ideals or how they live life and whatever they do, and just respect it, have unconditional love for everyone. And then the third thing we got to do is we just got to say no. You have to get the fear out of our hearts. That's the biggest thing. The biggest problem we have is fear. They rule us by fear, because once you go into fear mode,
There's false aberrations appearing real. I said aspirations. Some people say evidence. at the end of the day, your blood changes when you have fear. So your goal is to face that fear and courage and push through. Because when you do that, that's what gets you to the next level. Fear is just to hold you back. Don't say I can't if you never try. Keep doing until you're unable to do.
You go into a low frequency vibration in your DNA, and they know this. So then they get you into a fear mode. Everything is based off of fear. If you don't do this, this is going to happen. If you don't do this, this is going to happen to you. Now you're in fear and flight mode all the time, and now they go, now we're going to manipulate them with the TV programming, and we're going to put this into them, and we're going to keep them fear and low frequency, and now we can manipulate them and control them to do whatever we want them to do. When we drop the fear out of our hearts, because fear is an illusion, fear is an option, okay? And then once we drop the fear and we come together, and all in unison, we're able to achieve something that big and that monumentous, which can happen and will happen because it's happened in the past. It'll happen again in the future. That's when we will.
It's happening now. People are starting to become more conscious and aware of things. That's what they meant by Christ consciousness coming back. So be aware of your research and the connections in it.
To free ourselves from this Anunnaki bloodline that's ruling this planet. Thank you.
That's all, folks. Until the next video. If you want to see more, you can check out our website, where we break down other stuff in videos. Certain videos we can't show because platforms won't allow it. So it's only on our website. But at the end of it all being said and done, y'all got to make the change. And y'all got to be willing to do the work and the research to better yourselves, your family, and others. And until the next video, y'all keep striving high and keep focused and disciplined on positivity and abundance in your goals and accomplishments. Don't ever give up and don't ever quit. That's when you're right there. Just keep pushing. Y'all have a great life full of prosperity, abundance, and positivity. Keep striving high.